Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT-05, and BT-05 definitely offers us a lot of new and powerful cards to be working with and building some new and powerful decks to be building with. So one of those new cards is going to be LordKnightmon, and I definitely think LordKnightmon is one of the more powerful cards coming out of the set, and as a result it is definitely perceived to be one of the best decks, if not the best deck, in the BT-05 meta. So this deck is just a very powerful deck with a whole bunch of different ways that you could build it just because of how good LordKnightmon is and how good a lot of the yellow cards are as of BT-05. So going over my version of the deck, this is acting more of a core just because there is a lot of diversity in how you could build the deck. Starting with the digitama, I'm going to be running one copy of Koromon. So Koromon is just a really nice digitama. The 5th digitama could really be anything you feel like you want to be utilizing, but I'm just using Koromon because of the consistency in the type of ability that he's offering and providing, just because of what my main digitama is going to be. So what Koromon is doing is he has a nice when attacking ability of once per turn, where if you have 3 or fewer cards in your security, then one of the opponent's Digimon gets minus 1000 DP for the turn. So as I mentioned before, I'm just utilizing this card for the consistency on the 1000 reduction, and this is just another pretty decent digitama to be playing around for that purpose. But the main digitama of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Pickmon. So Pickmon is just doing what Koromon is doing, but the conditions are a little bit different, and Pickmon isn't locked to once per turn on his ability, so that could matter all depending on the type of build you're going for. But what this card is doing is he has a when attacking ability where if you have 3 or more Digimon in play, then one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 1000 DP for the turn. So minus 1000 DP might not seem like a lot, but depending on the types of cards that you're playing with and against, it could add up to be a lot just because you could stack the minus DP to end up deleting larger Digimon, or you could spread it out to try to delete multiple Digimon. So this is just another really good digitama to be utilizing, and I definitely really like this as the main digitama. But as I mentioned before with Koromon, it could really be anything you feel like because it is just the 5th digitama. But again, I just like Koromon for the consistency of just always trying to reduce the opponent's DP. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 4 copies of BushiAgumon. So BushiAgumon is just an absolutely insane rookie to be playing around with just because he has the rush ability. So what the rush ability allows him to do is attack the same turn he comes into play, and we have multiple different ways of how we could play this card. Primarily, the most ideal way is we're just going to be playing him from our hand for free, but we do have some different lines of play where, if possible, you could bring him out of the trash for free, or you could just naturally hard cast him for 5 and play him that way and be able to utilize the rush ability that way as well. But at worst, he is just a rookie that evos for 0, so we don't feel that bad digivolving one of our digitamas into him just because he does evo for 0 and he does have 3000 DP, which is a little bit larger than your average rookie. So I definitely like what this card is doing, and this card definitely can help steal games with that rush ability and all of the different ways that we have to be able to play him to get this ability off. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Kotemon. So Kotemon is a pretty decent Digimon to be running because he is our deck's dedicated digger for what he's going to be digging for. So he has this on-play ability where we get to check the top 5 cards of our deck, and then we get to add up to 2 yellow Digimon with either Warrior or Holy Warrior in its typing, and then place it into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. So what we're really looking for is just our Warriors and Holy Warriors. Obviously, the Holy Warrior is going to be Crusadermon, and the Warrior is going to be Knightmon, but depending on your build, you could be playing a little bit more Warriors or Holy Warriors to have multiple potential different targets to make Kotemon's draw power that much more consistent. But he's just, again, the deck's dedicated digger to try to help dig for our key pieces. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Starmons. So Starmons is just another absolutely insane level 3 that we have to be working with, and what's making this card so insane is the fact that he has this on-play ability where one of the opponent's Digimon gets minus 1000 DP for each Digimon we have in play. So that does include himself, so at worst you hard play him, he's going to be able to minus 1000 if he's the only card on the field, but ideally we're going to be playing like the pseudo-swarm, pseudo-control type of build, where the idea is we're going to swing with our Mega and then be able to play Digimon for free, and then Starmons, being one of those Digimon, is going to just add to the overall DP reduction. So pair that up with the on-attack power of Pickmon, and then whatever else we could possibly be playing for free, and the DP reduction just adds up to be a lot to just try to tackle a whole bunch of different problems and have like the Swiss Army knife of removal to just deal with a lot of potential different threats. And obviously, the more Digimon you have on the field, the more threatening Starmons gets, just because of how good his ability of DP reduction could be, all depending on how well we're able to swarm and control the field. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Pulsman. So Pulsman is still just an absolutely insane rookie to be playing around with, and he, like almost all of the other rookies, has this very powerful on-play ability that we could utilize to some really powerful degrees. So his on-play ability is separated into 2 different parts, where if we have 3 or more cards in our security, then we get to draw 1 card. So in the early game, while our security is healthy, we get to draw a card off of him, and then if we have 3 or fewer cards in our security, then we gain 1 memory. So if we're a little bit farther into the game and we have 3 or less security, then we get to gain 1 memory, which could be pretty good on all of the different ways we could utilize this card. And then if we have exactly 3 security, then we get both of those abilities off, and that's when the card is at his most powerful. So I definitely really like what this card is doing, and then obviously because we're yellow, we're trying to cheat in our low levels for free. We could utilize either of those abilities in some very powerful ways, but I definitely really like the versatility and flexibility of how this card is played and what this card can do for the deck. Next up, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Turuiemon. So Turuiemon is still just a really fantastic card to be running, just because he has an Evo for 1 and he has 6,000 DP, and that's all we're really utilizing the card for, is just those 2 stat lines. And then, similar to Turuiemon, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Pedomon, just because he also Evos for 1, but he only has 5,000 DP, but the trade-off to having 1,000 less DP is he is a blocker, so he's just acting as a really solid defensive tool for the deck to be utilizing. And then he has a classic blocker attacking clause where we'll lose 2 memory, but sometimes if we just want to swing for the game, we don't care about giving them the 2 memory because he's going to be the winning swing. But speaking of blockers, I'm just going to be running 4 copies of Unimon just because he is going to be another blocker for the deck. So that way our level 4s could form this mini wall, and we don't necessarily feel bad about digivolving on top of any of our blockers because we are just running a whole bunch of different blockers in the deck. And the big difference between this and Pedomon is the trade-off is for 1 less play cost and 1 more Evo cost. He also has 6,000 DP, and that could matter, all depending on the matchup and what you're going to be facing against. Next, on to the ultimates, I'm going to be running 4 copies of WarGrowlmon. So WarGrowlmon is just an absolutely insane Digimon to be running because of his main ability of Digiburst 2, where you just remove 2 cards from his evolution source to the trash, and then you get the following ability to reduce one of the opponent's Digimon's DP by 4,000 for the turn. So this can stack with a whole bunch of the other ways that we have to DP reduce the opponent's Digimon to just be able to delete a wide variety of targets in a wide variety of different fashions. And then on top of that, he even has a nice inheritable ability where while we have 3 or fewer cards in our security, then this Digimon gets plus 1,000 DP, which is still very nice to have because it just makes our Mega that much stronger during our turn. And then the only other ultimate of the deck that I'm going to be running is 4 copies of Knightmon. So Knightmon is just another really powerful level 5 that we have to work with because he has this nice on-play ability where one of the opponent's Digimon gets minus 4,000 DP for the turn. So whether we choose to hard play him or cheat him into play off of LordKnightmon, he's just going to be putting in a lot of work, and as a result, why we definitely want to be running him. Next, on to our Megas, I'm going to be running 3 copies of SlashAngemon. So SlashAngemon is just contributing to the overall control sub-theme that the deck wants to be playing around with, just because it doesn't necessarily matter what ultimate we're going to be utilizing. He's just going to be another way to increase the amount of DP reduction we have in the deck. So whether we play Knightmon off of LordKnightmon and get 4,000 that way, we could then digivolve into SlashAngemon to minus 12, or we could just move out of raising our WarGrowlmon, uses Digiburst ability minus 4,000, then Digivolve him right up into a Slash right afterward to just make minus 12,000, and then that's not even including any Starmon's abilities previously played, or any Pickmon's abilities previously on attacked. So, like, he's just adding a lot to the overall DP reduction to the deck, and definitely a really powerful control tool to be utilizing. And then the main mega of the deck is going to be 4 copies of LordKnightmon. So LordKnightmon is just an absolutely insane card on how powerful this card is and what this card is doing. So the first big thing to note is LordKnightmon stats. LordKnightmon does Evo for 3, which is really, really good, especially in the context of a raising meta. So that way, if we just have a memory fixing tamer on our field, we could safely move it out of raising from our ultimate stage, Digivolve right into LordKnightmon, and be able to swing with LordKnightmon in that same turn. So that's just a very, very powerful thing, having an Evo of 3, and then it does have 11,000 DP, which is okay. It's not amazing, it's not the worst, but we don't necessarily care about that because she has this really powerful ability where during all turns, for each other Digimon you have in play, this Digimon gets plus 1,000 DP. So paired up with literally any other Digimon, and that's just increasing the overall stats of LordKnightmon, making LordKnightmon that much more powerful and threatening even during the opponent's turn. So it forces them to try to clear out all of our smaller Digimon to try to then weaken LordKnightmon, and sometimes they might not be able to do both on getting rid of our wide board and the LordKnightmon at the same time. And then what's adding to the overall power of what LordKnightmon is doing is her when attacking ability, where we get to play a yellow level 3 Digimon or a yellow Digimon with Warrior in its type. It's just Warrior, not Holy Warrior, just Warrior, from our hand for free. So whether it's going to be any of our really powerful level 3s, or ideally the only other target that we're going to be playing in this style of deck is going to be Knightmon off of LordKnightmon, it's just a very powerful ability, just cheating in bodies for free. And especially if it is Knightmon, then it's basically on swing just to play Knightmon, which is a level 5 body, and then Knightmon's on play ability will trigger minus 4,000 to something, and then you could go into something like Slash right afterward to finish the turn off, to just delete a whole bunch of possible different Digimon. So LordKnightmon's ability to just be able to play your Digimon for free is absolutely insane, and because of this, it creates a lot of variety on how you could build the deck and to pair LordKnightmon up with other Digimon to make the deck and the different abilities as powerful as they possibly can be. And then the last mega of the deck is going to be our only level 7 of the deck, and that's going to be 3 copies of Chaosmon Volderarm. So this card is still just a really powerful level 7 to be utilizing, especially with all of the different instances of DP reduction that we're already playing with, just because his when Digivolving ability activates twice, where one of our opponent's Digimon gets minus 7,000 for the turn. So with all of our separate instances, we could really just deal with very wide boards very efficiently, especially going up into Chaosmon Volderarm, or if we already dealt with their wide board and we just need to do something to finish off the opponent's large Digimon, then we could stack both of his abilities on one Digimon to delete larger targets. So Chaosmon Volderarm is really powerful for that, and he's really obnoxious for the opponent to try to deal with because he has this nice on-delete ability where we get to gain 3 memory, which if it's on the opponent's turn, it's like we're taking away 3 of their memory, but if it's during our turn and we swing into the opponent's security and he's able to be deleted, then we get to gain 3 memory, and that could be a lot to try to push the overall aggression of the deck forward, because we could utilize that 3 memory in some very powerful ways. And then as far as the only option of the deck, I'm just running 3 copies of Blinding Ray. So Blinding Ray is just an absolutely insane card at just being able to gain us a lot of memory out of nowhere, because for the cost of 0, its main ability is just trashing the top card of our security stack, then we get to gain 2 memory. So even if we have 0 cards in our security, we still get to gain the 2 memory, making this card even more powerful the later the game goes, just because we can utilize this to just do some very devastating power plays, whether it's just trying to figure out ways to stabilize or just playing Bushi to try to end the game. This card is just really good at just helping push the overall progression of our deck forward and make some very powerful plays possible. And then the last card of the deck is going to be the only tamer of the deck, and that's going to be 3 copies of TK. So yes, this TK is still really good just because he is acting as our deck's memory fixing tamer, where if our memory is ever less than 3, he'll always just hard set it to 3. So that just allows us to play our cards more efficiently. And then on top of which, he has a nice on play ability where it just adds to the overall consistency of the deck by allowing you to look at your security stack and then add 1 card from your security stack to your hand. And then if that card is yellow, then we get to recover 1. So it's just allowing us to dig through our security to figure out what we need out of our security and be able to utilize that card the following turn, unless he's coming out of our security and being played for free. But this deck is just a very powerful deck to be playing around with overall, and it just has a lot of really powerful combo plays. So one of the best plays is if we just have a WarGrowlmon sitting in our raising, then we can move WarGrowlmon out, Digiburst it with TK on the field, and then minus 4,000 to one of the Digimon, then Digivolve into LordKnightmon, swing with LordKnightmon at 0 memory, then be able to play Knightmon, which is another minus 4,000, and then on top of that, we could then Digivolve Knightmon into SlashAngemon to end the turn off with another 8,000 on top of Pickmon's minus 1,000 on the attack if we have other Digimon paired up, or if our security is low enough, then Koromon also adds that minus 1,000. So this deck just has a lot of versatility and flexibility on just how it could delete the opponent's Digimon in this version, but like I said, there's just a whole bunch of different ways that you could build the deck. So here's just a couple of cards that I had in mind that could really change the deck based on what you feel like you want to gain out of it. So if you wanted to, you could use Upamon just because Upamon is a really good digitama to help you draw some cards. If you really wanted to, you could also use this version of Salamon just for the recovery, so that way you could try to keep yourself in the game that much more efficiently, and we don't care about the hard play cost of 4 because LordKnightmon could just play it for free anyway. Or if you want to go a little bit heavier into DP reduction, then you could run the Salamon that just has this nice on-attacking minus another 1,000, so that way you could stack multiple instances of this type of ability. Or if you just want some other really good rookies that you could think about playing, you could use Lopmon just because you could draw from your security, reducing your security count, and then it draws from your deck also, or you could use it to play some mind games with the opponent. You have Lucemon, which you could play for free off of LordKnightmon because that's like half of LordKnightmon's design, is just being able to play level 3s for free, so Lucemon fits under that nicely. Then you could also think about running Cutemon just to try to act as like a pseudo-Terriermon, reducing and limiting the opponent's options. Granted, Cutemon's ability is a little bit more specific than something like Terriermon's, but it's still just a really good card to limit the opponent's options depending on what the matchup is and how the meta is developing. Then you could also think about running Pedomon. So this version of Pedomon is basically acting very similar to Lucemon and to the recovery Salamon. So if you just need some form of recovery, this Pedomon is pretty good. Or if you're going a little bit heavier into the DP reduction, then you could run the starter deck Pedomon just because the starter deck Pedomon lets you gain a memory when you delete one of the opponent's Digimon through DP reduction, and by extension you could also run Labramon for basically doing the same thing, except you're going to be drawing cards, so that could be pretty good depending on how you feel about where your deck is currently at. And then another warrior that you could consider playing is Gladiemon. So this is a level 4 that's basically doing something very similar to TK, where you get to look at your security stack and then add 1 warrior or holy warrior from among them into your hand. And then if you do, then you get to recover 1. So again, just TK except on a body for warriors and holy warriors. Then, if you wanted to, you could also think about playing WarGrowlmon. So the red WarGrowlmon is pretty good because he allows you to play your TKs for free, and he has this really nice when attacking ability of minus 2,000 on one of the opponent's Digimon. So again, just contributing to the DP reduction and being able to play your tamer for free is really good, just so it can prevent you from being memory starved for the rest of the game. And being able to play cards for free is always more efficient than actually playing them for their dedicated costs. You could think about running Sirenmon just for some overall tempo efficiency. Then you could think about Angelmon from BT-03 just because the when digivolving ability could matter by reducing the security attack of the opponent's Digimon, thus allowing whatever Digimon that the stat is under to not be able to deal security damage or swing for lethal. But the primary purpose on why we would want to use this card is for her inheritable ability, where if we have 3 or fewer cards in our security, just being able to play another yellow level 3 from our hand is absolutely insane. So you could swing with LordKnightmon, play 1 card, and then Skill of Angemon, play another card, and that's just very, very powerful because that's a lot of pressure onto the board, on top of whatever on-play abilities any of those cards might have. Then if you want to lean a little bit heavier into recovery, then you could play the starter deck Angemon, just because the when Digivolving Recover 1 is pretty decent as long as we have 3 or fewer cards in our security. And then as far as some alternate megas to pair up with LordKnightmon, you just have a lot of versatile options. So if you wanted to, you could play the Mastimon package, where you could play Gatomon that acts as a blocker and recovers 1, and then Mastimon being able to play our level 3s and 4s potentially out of our trash could have some very powerful synergy in combos depending on all of the other cards that you're utilizing her with. Then you could run Magnagermon. So Magnagermon's on-attacking ability is basically almost the same thing as LordKnightmon's, just a little bit worse considering you can't play level 5s or 4s that are warriors for free. But regardless, just being able to spawn multiple bodies is what the deck kind of wants to do. And then on top of that, you have the possible option of her on-play ability to recover 2 if our security is 3 or less, so you have that option open to you also. Then if you want to lean a little bit heavier into the Holy Warriors, you have Kentaurosmon to act as another Holy Warrior to consider playing. Then you could also consider Yellow WarGrowlmon, just because his ability to draw from the security, multi-attack, and reduce DP is everything that the deck already kind of wants to do. So if you want to run WarGrowlmon also, then he's just another really good complementary mega for the deck. And then if you are running Mastimon, then you also have access to some very powerful level 7s. So you could think about running Omnimon Zwart D, just because he could Digivolve on top of Mastimon if you really feel like it. Or what we are trying to actually utilize this card for is his security ability to just be able to play himself for free. Even though he won't be taking out the attacking Digimon, just a free level 7 out of your security is already insane. And then he has 2 very powerful abilities. So on top of Mastimon, you get his when Digivolving ability to delete one of the opponent's tamers, which is absolutely insane depending on what the opponent's deck is, where they might not be running a whole lot of tamers, so that could really set them far behind, just because now you could figure out ways to choke them on memory. And he also has a nice on-delete ability, where he gets to delete one of the opponent's Digimon, so he's just, again, an absolutely insane card to be running. And then we even have some really good new forms of removal. So Spiral Masquerade is just one of the better new yellow removal options that we got, just because for the low cost of 4, we get this really powerful main ability. For each Digimon, you get to activate the following ability, and the ability you're activating is one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 3,000 for the turn. So the whole idea is we are going to try to swarm. So if we have at least 3 Digimon on our field, which isn't necessarily the hardest thing to do, then this could minus 9,000 on 1, or just to act as a good board clear by minusing 3 on 3 of their Digimon. So just the flexibility and versatility on how we could utilize the main ability is really good. And then it has the nice security ability of activating the main. So again, just another really powerful removal option to think about utilizing. And then the only other tamer that I would consider running, depending on your builds, would be Tai and Matt, the Duo Tamer. So this is a white Duo Tamer, but this card is really good just because at the start of your turn, if the opponent has a level 6 or higher Digimon in play, then we get to gain 2 memory. So even if we are being memories choked, if they have a level 6 or higher, then we'll just be set to 3. And then if we're already at 3, we'll be set to 5. And that's just a lot of memory to be working with. And then on top of which, he has this nice other ability where during your turn, your Digimon with Omnimon in its name gets security attack +1. So if you are running Omnimon Zwart D and Mastimon, then you could give Omnimon Zwart D the security attack +1, which again is just adding to the overall power of the deck and definitely making Matt and Tai a very powerful duo tamer to be considering on playing. But these are just a few examples of like really powerful cards that could really change up the build and really enhance different aspects of what yellow is trying to be doing, all depending on what you're trying to gain out of the deck and out of the cards you're utilizing. But for the most part, this is just my take on a good shell for LordKnightmon, and as I mentioned before, there's just a ton of different things that you could do with the deck, so please feel free to experiment with whatever you want, because LordKnightmon just is that powerful of a card, and yellow is just that powerful of a color, just because a lot of the tools just seemingly blend nicely together, making any build you want work just because of all of the synergy and harmony that the color has to offer. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are different ways that you could support me in the channel. So one of those ways is I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so whenever you use that affiliate link to buy cards off of tcgplayer.com, then some of the money will go to supporting me in the channel, and on top of which I also do stream over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so following and subbing is a good way to support me over on that platform as well. And on top of that, I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so whenever you buy one of my designs through them, then some of that money will also help go to supporting me in the channel. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.